My name's Louise Petchler and I'm the CEO of Abacus Australian Mutuals, and we represent Australia's customer-owned banking sector. Australia's credit union, building societies, mutual banks, our mutual banking system, it's a lot bigger than people think. We've got more branches around the country than the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. We run the second largest ATM network in terms of banking networks in the country, and we've got over $85 billion in assets. In fact, here in Australia we've got the third largest credit union system in the world, and that's a fantastic customer-owned banking system that we can be really proud of as a country, and that continues to play a really important role in competition. Since the GFC, what we've seen in Australia is the big four banks really concentrating their market share. So now the majority of home loans, the majority of banking business is really quite tightly controlled by these big four institutions. What that means is a lack of competition, and a lack of competition means a lack of highly competitive prices and choice for consumers. We all want successful and strong big banks in Australia, and we're not arguing with the fact that they need to make profits to return that value to their shareholders. But what we've seen since the GFC period really is the big banks, through acquisition and through some of the regulatory settings, have really been able to take a larger share of the market. We see that some of our marketing and disclosure rules don't require our biggest banks to be crystal clear about when they're marketing amongst other brands or their subsidiary brands. We see that some of the regulations around funding and access to funds and guarantees have benefited the big banks at the expense of the very safe smaller banks or credit unions who are offering highly competitive alternatives. So we see a number of areas where we think there's a real opportunity for us to step back and review those settings. This is important for Australian consumers because without a competitive market, we're going to see pricing that's not at the sharp end. Consumers won't get the best deal they can. Service standards won't be as good, and new products and innovation won't be as quick to market. We think that in general Australians are frustrated by what they perceive to be a lack of choice. They feel that they have to take what the big banks are offering, and while there are alternatives out there like the mutual banking sector, on the whole our banking system is really heavily concentrated. Whenever competition is constrained because we've got a concentration of the market amongst a few large players, we're not seeing the same competitive pressure that would deliver better pricing and better service and innovation amongst products to banking consumers in this country. We think that the current regulations work. There's no question that Australia has a stable and strong banking system that's the envy of the world, and none of us in the market or outside it want to damage in any way the security and stability of our strong banking system. But there are settings and opportunities in our regulations that could really take a stronger view of the need for competition and choice. We believe that the mutuals can play a really powerful role in that, but also other players need a voice at the table, and particularly consumers who we know are unhappy with the deal they're getting from big banks and are looking for a more vibrant market with more choice and better value. For our industry, for the customer-owned banking industry, we see real opportunities in terms of recognising that customer-owned framework, in looking at funding for banking providers, in making sure that the settings and systems that control the way the big banks market and sell their products clearly disclose who they are, and also require a level of accountability. We think there's some quite big issues there that our system can look at and can improve, and that's the opportunity that an independent inquiry into our system can deliver. One of the features of Australian consumers is we all like to bash the banks, but then when it comes time to do something about changing the way that we do our banking, it's too hard, it's too boring, it's too complicated, and we let things slide. So we hope that Balanced Banking provides an opportunity for consumers to bring their questions, their legitimate issues, their concerns, and have a stronger joint presence, so that instead of feeling individual frustration about the way the market's structured or the fact that you feel you have to take a deal from one of the big four, that you can be part of a national conversation that's going to help us guide our governments, our regulators, and make sure that the consumer's interests and the value for consumers is going to be the priority in the way that we structure and look after our banking system. And that's really what the Balanced Banking campaign is about, a chance for all the stakeholders to have their say and for us to create a more competitive and stronger banking market that works for consumers more effectively.